Good morning. Hello, and welcome to the first live stream event on the Empathic Designer podcast. I am your host, Vaidishwaran. So, today we have a very interesting topic that we're going to be discussing. The topic is to creating micro learning on a micro budget. So we're going to be looking at what exactly micro learning is and how exactly it fits into the context in today's world of how we learn, and also look at some strategies that we can use to create micro learning on a real shoestring budget. Because every time when we talk about micro learning and say that we're creating micro learning, we immediately think of graphics and some sort of an animated video, some sort of a hand drawn video, or something to that effect. I mean, you would have seen a lot of these things in your organizations. You would have seen similar things on YouTube when you're looking to learn something. So some of these videos are simple to create, but some of these videos have quite a high production value, and we typically look at those videos for inspiration to create micro learnings. But as I said before, micro learnings have which are created in that manner have a certain amount of cost attached to it. And today's objective is to look at certain non-conventional methods where we're going to step away from your animated world and look at some strategies that we can use to create highly impactful micro learning on a shoestring budget. So let's get started. So when we say micro learning has a lot of definitions. I mean, there are a lot of sites that give a lot of great definitions, and a lot of, I mean, when you Google micro learning on YouTube, you find a lot of stuff over there. You have lots of Google searches throwing up a lot of definitions, but this is a definition that I have come up with based on my experience with micro learning. So I define it as a standalone modality designed to deliver one idea, drilled down to its simplest possible form to the target audience in under 3 to 4 minutes. Right? So this brings us to the question. So I've used this term simple. So how simple is right? How simple is too simple? So when I said the simplest possible form to the target audience, it really means the simplest possible form that makes sense to them. While oversimplification is definitely a risk, it is really important to realize the value of keeping things simple for your audience in order to enable better retention and their action on the learning that you've just imparted. And this is actually one of the reasons why a micro learning module should be under 3 to 4 minutes. Because if you're going to exceed 3 to 4 minutes, it really isn't going to achieve the purpose that for which micro learning is originally created for. Right? So we have now seen what exactly is micro learning. So we also need to understand what isn't micro learning. So any piece of learning that is going to exceed 5 minutes is not exactly a micro learning. And the same way, any learning that is going to contain more than one idea, one concept, or one action or a task in it is not a micro learning. Because if you are really going to exceed this 5 minute mark over there, that really means that either you have not simplified the concept enough, or you're just talking more than one concept in that particular learning piece, and obviously it isn't a micro learning at that point. And the third point is not being a standalone. So this is another point that I would like to highlight, and this is one of the common misconceptions, or I would say a wrong way in which micro learning is used. Micro learning is used as a subset of a larger part. I mean, with that part is actually fine, but when you take that micro learning piece, it should be a standalone in itself. It should be a single self-explanatory piece with one idea or a concept that doesn't require any scaffolding by another piece of learning, or it shouldn't sort of lead into another sort of learning. I mean, it should act as an individual element. So that is very important when it comes to defining a micro learning. So these are some of the things that I feel is really important to remember when you are conceptualizing and designing a micro learning module, right? So when I talk about micro learning, one of the movies that really come to my mind, like every time I sit and start storyboarding or conceptualizing for a micro learning, literally the first thing that comes to my mind is this movie, Inception. So this movie, I've watched this movie several times, but one of the things that I really like about this movie is the messaging that it delivers, because the whole premise of this movie depends on planting one idea into the mind of their target, and that idea must be drilled down to its simplest possible form so that the target is able to latch onto that idea and is able to subscribe to that idea and is able to action upon that idea. The movie Inception really talks about how to achieve this through dreams and levels of dreams and things like that. But from a learning perspective, from a L&D perspective, we can actually extrapolate the levels that this movie Inception talks about into the levels of micro learning. So after being a big fan of this movie Inception, and of course Leonardo DiCaprio, and the kind of messaging that this movie gives, I have come up with the levels of micro learning inspired by this movie. So let's go and have a look at the levels of micro learning. So when you say levels of micro learning, it basically starts with who is this for, right? So always start with your target audience. So whenever you're going to conceptualize a micro learning piece, your first point of reference to start or pin your idea is to understand who exactly your audience is, right? And once you have identified that, you need to understand as to why they are here. What is their purpose? Why have they started looking at your micro learning? What exactly is their need, right? You need to understand their needs. And once you have both of these in place, you need to make them feel. So that's one thing. You understanding this is one part. And when it comes to micro learning, the second part is making them understand that you understand what they want, right? So once you have achieved this, the third level is the most important level, which is the actual message, right? So you deliver the message. So you have identified the person, you've identified their motivations. So based on that, you are planting your message. And once you have planted your message, the fourth level is the kick, is where you're going to make them act on the message that you have implanted in them through your micro learning, right? So this is the four levels of micro learning. So each time you design and develop a micro learning piece, right, you need to remember these four levels when you're conceptualizing and designing and developing your micro learnings. So before I go into the actual core concept, the plan that we have for today, this is another question that I wanted to address. I mean, this is a question that a lot of people come and ask me: is micro learning something for me? Is micro learning something that really works, or is it just a fad? Right? So as L&D professionals, we definitely know that micro learning is a very versatile and is a very powerful tool for, especially for today's learners, because we have all seen multiple studies that have been done on the attention span of people in this digital age, and it is less than that of a goldfish, right? So if that is going to be the case, people are in a hurry. See, the attention span is one thing. We need to, as L&D professionals, we also need to understand why their attention span is so less. The reason why attention span of people, I found it's too less, is because we are literally spoiled for choices today, right? There are so many professionally made videos, documents, images, resources, audio parts, podcasts. There's so much information over there. So people are really in a hurry. People don't have time, right? So you need to understand that. You need to empathize with your audience as to why they are looking at learning the way they are looking at it, and you need to work with them to make sure that they are able to get the message from your learning, and you are able to gain their attention, sustain their attention, deliver your message, and make them act. So micro learning, if you really ask me, is applicable across a broad range of spectrum, and it really depends on how you strategically use and how you are able to make sure that it stays relevant for your audience, right? So we have seen an overview of what micro learning is at the moment. So here's the part that I promised: minimum cost, maximum impact. Is this even realistic from a micro learning perspective? It is definitely possible. See, micro learning, like I said before, doesn't always have to be fancy animations and slick videos. You can still create highly impactful learning without the support of an actual development or a programming team. Effective learning really relies upon the instructional design strategies more than the graphic design and all of the fireworks that come along with it. I mean, I'm not denying that graphic design is important. Graphic design and the quality, the visual quality and the visual appeal are definitely important when it comes to creating learning modules. But more than that, it is the instructional strategy which really lays the foundation for an impactful learning. So when it comes to micro learning, creating micro learning at minimum cost and maximum impact, your learning strategies or approaches should be in such a way that you are able to prototype in a rapid manner. You remain agile and at the same time cost effective, right? So we're going to be looking at some strategies that I have personally used for creating an impactful learning for my audience. And I'm also going to be showing you an interesting tool that I stumbled upon a couple of weeks back for creating micro learning modules, and it was really interesting. So I'm going to be sharing all about that in the next few minutes. So let's get started. So the first topic that I'm going to be talking about is email based learning. Okay, so before you guys come up and say, hey, Vaidi, come on, this is 2021 and you're talking about email based learning. This is all so old. I mean, we hate emails. We don't like clutter in our inboxes. I mean, I've heard all of it, and I've personally undergone all of it myself as well. But I'm going to share a very interesting story with you all to just let you know how I kind of stumbled upon email based learning as an effective mode of micro learning, right? So this started a few years back when I was managing a team of instructional designers and graphic designers. So my team was co-located in two different locations in two different cities, and we had the system in our organization where we had to submit our timesheets, where we charge our effort hours into the system and send out those submissions. So we do this on a weekly basis, right? We had an issue again with some of our team members where um, either they forget to turn in their timesheets on time, or they're just indifferent about it. So a lot of people didn't really realize the impact as to why exactly these timesheets are important. And I mean, we conducted numerous sessions. We had group meetings. We tabled this as one of the agenda points. We constantly talked to them about this, but nothing really worked. I mean, there was some improvement after those meetings, but 1 or 2 weeks after, it's back to square one. So, I mean, I then started sending out. I then decided that I'm going to be sending out reminders to these people. But you know how it is. I mean, receiving a reminder every Friday morning from your boss on the stuff that you need to do on a Friday before you leave for your weekend, yeah, that can be quite enduring. Apart from all of the other tasks that you actually have, you need to wrap up before um, closing for the week. Right, so I just thought of, okay, so let me try making the mood a little lighter. So I did a little bit of search online, and I gathered a bunch of cartoons and GIFs that I just copy paste onto the body of my email. So that basically those are, I mean, they could be cartoons, they could be memes, they could be some animated GIFs. I won't write a word on my email. It'll be just that GIF. It's all relevant to the importance of submitting your timesheets on time, and it was really like comic stuff. So I started sending out these emails. I started sending out one. A couple of people pinged me and they said they found my email too funny. And over the next month, I noticed that literally everyone were submitting their timesheets on time, right? And incidentally, this went on for about 2-3 months, and incidentally, I had to take it off on a particular Friday for personal reasons, and I couldn't send out that email. You won't believe the number of messages that I got on my phone asking, Vaidi, where's your email? We missed your email today. Are you submitting your timesheets? Right? So that's when I had this spark saying, okay, so people really enjoy this. People are really enjoying my emails. And it has created an impact on them, and they are acting on it. And I am observing a shift in their behavior. So how about we extend this for learning, right? So when we talk about email based learning, there are a lot of strategies that you can use for creating or designing those emails. So you can either create a couple of characters, sort of come up with a cartoon or come up with some sort of a storyline that kind of runs as a series, and people sort of read that as a comic, and they kind of want to see what's happening, and they want to learn more, and they remember that backstory so that they get to recall that and continue reading your comic. So that gives them a sense of continuity, and they remember things and they recall things, right? And it really depends on how you're structuring your email. So when you're coming up with scenarios or stories or gifs or anything like that, make sure that your emails are fun and at the same time deliver your messages. Because I have seen this email based learning being misused. This was several years back, where one of my previous organizations used to send out these mailers, and it was not fun. The subject line was fun, but the body of the email was just boring text and just giving me instructions and references to policies and all that stuff. So I just didn't read those emails. So make sure that when you're creating an email based learning, you can still make it enormous fun for people. And in fact, this is an extension of the story that I just told you. So one of my team members had to leave the organization, and they've got another job as a lead in another organization. And before they left, we were just having a farewell party, and she came and asked me, Vaidi, where do you get these GIFs and images? Can you share it with me? I want to introduce this in my new organization. Right? So this is the level of impact that you can actually create with just simple emails. I mean, how much is it going to cost to design an email, to come up with a template and share it? Resources are all available online. And it's not just about saving costs, it also saves a lot of time. You can come up with these emails in like for 10-15 minutes and shoot those emails out. Right? So it's that simple. So let's look at another one of my favorites, podcasts. So this is actually, I wouldn't call it a lazy approach, but it's a creative approach where, I mean, when you are going to start when you start designing a course, you will obviously have a session with your subject matter experts, and you have some doubts, and they kind of help answering those questions. So, how about converting this interaction into a podcast episode? So, all you'll have to do is make sure that you have a conversation with the subject matter experts. I'm sorry. Yeah. All you'll have to do is just have a conversation with your subject matter experts, and set up some time with them, get them into the call, do the interview that you always do with them, and just add a little bit of stock music toward the front and clean up the audio quality, and your learning module is ready. Right? It is so simple. And the advantage of using a podcast based learning is the level of authenticity it delivers for your learners. Because when it comes to, if you, I mean, it really, I mean, it doesn't really matter whether you're creating this learning for within your organization or for outside your organization. When they listen to a familiar voice, someone from their team, someone from their manager, someone kind of telling their story and explaining what it really means when it comes to the messaging of that particular content, it definitely sticks, right? And when it comes to production costs, it's very, very simple. All you're going to do is you're going to use your existing infrastructure. So if you're going to do a call over Zoom or Microsoft Teams, all you're going to do is just record, extract the audio and use it. Or if you're going to be conducting a telephonic conversation with them, just have a recorder with you, or your smartphone records audio, so you can just record that audio, just clean it up a little bit and convert it into an episode. So this again is just a 5-minute episode that really talks about what exactly is the core idea, and your audience gets to listen from an expert, which makes it all the more interesting. So, okay, this is another question. So I was talking about podcasts with one of my friends, and they were kind of asking me as to what equipment can you use, right? So like I was saying before, you can definitely use a smartphone. That's all it takes to really record podcasts. What I typically use, so if you want to make it a little bit more professional, I use a device called Zoom. Let me do one thing. Just stay here. I'll get my Zoom recorder and I'll show you how it looks. Give me a second. All right. So I have my recorder over here. Give me a second. Yeah. This is how the Zoom recorder looks like, right? So you can fix a microphone on the top like this. It comes with a kit, and you just have to hit record, and it just plays. I mean, it just records whatever audio that you want to record. So it's very, very simple. If you want to create an episode of slightly better production value, you can use a device like this, or I mean, your smartphone can really do the trick for you. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is using infographics. Okay, so when it comes to creating infographics, I'm the first question that typically comes to me is, okay, so you're talking about infographics. Doesn't that need a graphic designer? So you're going to create icons, you're going to create media assets. So we definitely need a graphic designer for that. So how can you say infographics? There are ways in which you can create infographics by yourself, right? I'm going to give you a couple of tools over here that you can use to create such beautiful infographics. The first tool is called Canva. So Canva is an online tool where you can, where they have a lot of templates that you can use, you can customize. You can download them as JPEGs, or you can download them as PDFs. So they have both free as well as paid versions, where the free version, you can get like a good number of infographics. And if you go for the paid versions, their entire library along with stock images are available. And another option is to use Adobe Spark. So if you or your organization has an Adobe account, and you kind of have access to that, Adobe Spark is one of the most underutilized tools in organizations. I mean, it has such a beautiful library of possibilities. There are so many images, icons, templates, and I mean, these templates are even optimized for the mode of delivery as to whether you want to deliver it over email, whether you want to make it into a social media post, and if it is social media, whether it's going to be YouTube, or if it's going to be Facebook, or if it's going to be Twitch or Instagram. So it has all sizes preset. So all you need to do is just put in your content, rearrange, and make it work for you. And again, you can customize the colors, you can add your branding, you can do all of that you want. And another question that comes up is using images. So some people prefer using photographic images for creating infographics, and usually stock photos are expensive, and you'll have to get a subscription, and all of that is there. So one of the best ways to go around that is to use a site called Unsplash. So Unsplash has a massive library of royalty-free images. They are absolutely free to download. They are of very high quality, and I use those regularly for my trainings and presentations. So Unsplash is a great resource when it comes to using for creating infographics, right? And the next tool that I want to talk about is PowerPoint. And whatever I said for infographics again applies over here. You can definitely create a lot of infographics. The PowerPoint has a lot of templates that you can use. There are a lot of free online templates that are available that you can download and customize. And there are some paid sites where for templates and all of that, and they usually come up with these free offers, right? So at certain intervals of time, they post a bunch of like 10 or 15 templates or 20 templates. They sort of bundle that and say, this is for free. So you can keep an eye out for that. Download those templates. They have some beautiful infographics, and you can customize, tweak, and use them to create your micro learnings. And the advantage with PowerPoint is you can also publish it as a video once you're done, right? So if your audience wants a PDF based learning, you can still achieve that on PowerPoint. If they're looking for a video with some transitions and animation, yes, again, that is something that you can achieve with PowerPoint. So this is another great tool that you can use for creating micro learnings. Another tool that I strongly recommend is using instant messaging. So it's WhatsApp. You can use Telegram. You can use a lot of things, a lot of instant messaging platforms like Signal. A lot of things are available, so you can definitely use some of those. When it comes to using instant messaging, the USP of these instant messaging platforms, the reason why I say they are excellent for creating microlearning modules is their low dependency on data, right? And the widespread availability of these platforms for your audience. So these are some very, very critical things when it comes to distributing your learning and making sure that your learning reaches your end audience, right? And this is actually, I think I had spoken this particular case study about this particular case study in one of my earlier videos, where I came up with a strategy for a company which had their employees distributed in very remote locations, and they have a hard time getting even 3G bandwidths from wherever they are. And we came up with this strategy of delivering learnings and small learning bites through instant messaging. And also one more advantage that we discovered in this particular process was the ability to transform an instant messaging platform into a social learning platform, right? So you have a cohort that is learning a particular piece of learning, and you this instant messaging platform also gives them an opportunity to interact with their peers and share ideas and post comments, and this becomes a sort of a repository for them. And since this is a very inclusive way of learning, the audience is thoroughly engaged in this process, and they become part of the learning journey. And depending on the level of interest that you are able to generate for your audience, you will also be able to make your audience create new content. And that is one of the best ways in which you can make your learning stick for your audience, and also extend the degree of application that they can do with whatever they have learned from your modules, right? So these are some of the strategies that are available at the moment. And like I said earlier, I would like to spend the next few minutes to talk about an interesting tool that I came across online. So the tool is called 7 Taps. So I got connected with Kate on LinkedIn, and she's one of the co-founders of 7 Taps. And I got to play around a little bit with the tool. So to give you an overview of what 7 Taps is, it's basically a Florida-based startup, and it's a very small team. Just has eight members, and they started in November of last year. And within these few months, they have got around 700 users, more than 700 users from over 14 countries, and they have created over 2,000 courses. So the one of the few things that I really liked about this particular one, so I got an opportunity to play with this particular tool last week, and one of the things that I really liked is the simplicity of this tool. I mean, I was able to create an entire microlearning module in about 20 minutes, right? It's a very time efficient tool, and the cost is not very high. And of course, there are these cards that they use that was very intuitive. And one of the things that I really liked about this particular tool is the ability to use gifs and memes. I mean, from my personal perspective, I felt that it kept learning very real, kind of real world for me, because those are things that people can associate with. And it sort of gave me the feeling that it was democratizing learning. And it also has a nifty dashboard where you can track the learner progress and see how they have done, and sort of generate reports and things like that. So Kate has been kind enough to give me a pro level access to this tool for about a month. And I'm going to be reviewing this particular tool in detail in my next video on this channel. So stay tuned for that. I think this tool has a lot of potential, and you can even check out this tool online at 7taps.com, and they've got some wonderful stuff for you there. And Kate is a very nice person. I've had a lot of conversations with her, so do connect with her on LinkedIn as well, and have fun creating microlearnings in this sort of a new way. So those are some of the topics that I really wanted to talk about today, on how to create microlearning in a simple and effective manner, and at the same time making sure that you don't burn your pockets by doing that. So of course, if you have any questions for me, or if you have any comments that you would like to share, please feel free to drop in a message in the comment section, and I would love to have a conversation with you. And of course, you have all of my contact details on the screen as well. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, on Facebook. You can connect with me on WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal. I'm there on all those platforms. And of course, if you're visiting my channel for the first time, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon, so that you get notified for all of the videos that I put out quite regularly. This is one of the few active L&D channels from India. So make sure that you subscribe and have this conversation with me. And I would love to keep talking to you. And we love things L&D, anything L&D over here. So make sure that you subscribe and keep in touch with us. And I look forward to coming back to you very soon with another episode similar to this on another interesting topic in the next few weeks. Thank you and have a wonderful day and a fantastic weekend.